there, very good evening to you. You are watching Vantage Point, where we believe that perspective matters. And today on the program, we'll be discussing extensively about a host of topics, including the inquiry into the bond scam, which has been initiated by the Presidential Commission of Inquiry, and also a number of other issues that's relating to our economy and the world around and the world politics itself. And to discuss about it, we've got Dr. Vantage with us. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on board.
Well, first up, let's just talk about a hot button issue. Which has been a hot button issue for almost 2 years now, the bond scam. We see the Presidential Commission of Inquiry opening up its investigation into the bond transaction, and the evidence, the pieces of evidence we've been getting throughout the whole week has been a reflection, a mirror reflection of the same pieces of evidence that the COPE report revealed about a year ago. In fact, the evidence that we've been seeing even on media and newspapers and social media is basically about how it's the same replication of evidence that has been disclosed by the officers of the central bank itself. We saw the outcome of the COPE report. We saw how it never turned out to be a prosecution. Is that the same outcome that we can expect through this Presidential Commission of Inquiry? Is it going to be a clear reflection of that itself?
Well, Stephanie, I hope not, and I think not. Now, it's true, as you said, that what the Commission of Inquiry is doing seems to be a rerun of the two COPE reports. But, and by the way, two COPE reports. The one that was chaired by D. Gunasekara and I think authored and driven mainly by Professor Rajiv Vijayasinghe when he was a parliamentarian. Right. And of course, Sunil Handanaty's better known COPE report. The thing is that it wasn't on the television news every day. It wasn't exactly opaque, but it was a parliamentary committee. But here, everybody knows. It's like Watergate playing out. Everybody knows who did what to whom, when, and where. What we don't yet know is the why. But it's all on primetime TV, it's on the news. So the people know that basically something very bad and very big happened. And they're watching. It's being rolled out in painstaking detail. Who said what, who objected, everybody objected, it looks like. And who then took the decision, why were all the officials overridden, what was going on, what was the motivation. So it's all out there, Stephanie, every night. And I don't think it will be possible to sweep the outcome under the rug in the manner that the two COPE reports were basically allowed to die a natural death. Society knows what's going on. People know. Anybody with a television set knows. So it's big. It's big, or as Trump would say, it's huge. And the people will expect some kind of punishment of those responsible.
There is a lot of apathy in the air when you come to think of it. Even after an investigation or after clear evidence being shown, people do not react anymore. Is it a problem?
Well, Stephanie, they do and they don't. Now, the middle classes, it would seem, are not reacting. They're passive. But then again, look at the doctors. They're sort of more upper middle class than middle class. And they're very militant. Everywhere there is protest. I am hearing about or reading about a possible power cut. We know the doctors are coming out on strike on the 7th of April. There is a kind of a rash, as it were, of social unrest that's spreading. So I don't think it's right to say that across the board there's apathy. But there is apathy among the sort of liberal, urban, middle class. They don't know exactly what to do. They're not happy about what's going on. But I think there's some element of confusion. They don't know where to turn and whom to turn to.
They just want to settle with a lesser evil.
Yeah, I don't think they know who or what the lesser evil is.
But where is the opposition in all of this? We see the opposition caught up in its own dilemma. We don't see a strong opposition. When I say opposition, not only the main opposition, I'm talking about the whole spectrum. Why do you think the opposition itself being destabilized?
Well, I think it's rather simple. I mean, you've got an opposition of 51 members which isn't recognized as the opposition. Then you've got an opposition of 16 members, which is much smaller than 51, which is recognized as the opposition. But that's the TNA. But the TNA just wants the one thing, that is, it wants a new constitution, maybe two things, and it wants accountability. It's willing to push accountability to later down the road, 2 years down the road, but it wants the new constitution soon. And it wants the transfer of police and land powers to the northern and eastern provincial councils. Now, that's not the role of an opposition. The TNA is a lobby. I mean, I don't blame it, but then it shouldn't call itself the opposition. It's not an opposition. And the 51 guys who are the opposition are not recognized as such, so they don't get speaking time, and they cannot play the role of the opposition, which is a very healthy one. That is, as a feedback mechanism which corrects the government's trajectory. Now, we shall, however, be able to see just how important everybody is on May Day, because we'll be able to see whether the joint opposition is really strong. They wanted Gallface, and now the government has decided to call their bluff, as it were, if bluff it is, and say, okay, you've got Gallface.
What really says that they are strong? Is it just the mass, the number of people they can bring to one place or get the support, or is it just standing up to what they believe in, the principles and values that they stand firm opposing?
Well, I would say firstly the numbers. Now, there were 95 SLF peers elected in August 2015, of which quite a few were hived off by President Sirisena and brought in to the national government. But even with the benefit of state power and patronage, they were not able, that is, President Sirisena and the UNP and Chandrika were unable to take the majority of the SLF peers into the national government. So you have 40 odd in the national unity government, and you have 51 in opposition, which means that these guys, for whatever reason, could not be co-opted. They couldn't be bribed. They decided to sit it out, to stay in the cold. They're not even the official opposition, but they've held together. So that means there's some kind of commitment, some kind of strength in there, which is a fairly serious thing. So I would say that these guys are, that it's a serious opposition.
But is it just commitment to the party or the values that they believe in, or mere loyalty that kept them together?
Well, obviously there's loyalty to Mahinda Rajapaksa, but there's something else. I think they feel that if they cross over, they won't be able to be re-elected. I think they're sensing
that they won't feel important and significant in that.
No, they won't get re-elected. I mean, these are politicians. They go by what their shareholders say, and their shareholders are people who vote for them, and they are in touch with the grassroots. Because on the one hand, you have an SLFP president, and you've got all your SLFP buddies in government, and it's nice to be in government. But why aren't these guys crossing over? There has to be another powerful factor, and I believe that factor is public opinion. They know that the people who voted for them don't want to see them with the government, and they want them to stay in opposition and attack the government, criticize the government. So basically, Stephanie, is market forces.
So do you think
they're responding to the market.
Yeah, but do you think they're doing their job of being an opposition or part of an opposition?
Yes and no. I mean, they are doing their job because if they didn't exist or if they went along with the government, many things that the Prime Minister wanted to do would have been done, but right now they're not being done. Whether it's the new constitution or Hambantota or Trincomalee or Geneva, all of this is because the opposition is barking away, and therefore the SLFP in government is afraid that its votes would go to the JO, and therefore the SLFP is dissenting within government, and that has an effect of a deterrent on government. So I would say yes, but I have seen oppositions that were smaller than this one, which were far more effective. Now in 1977, the SLFP was not even the official opposition because the TULF had more seats, and Mr. Amithalingam was quite rightly named the leader of the opposition, unlike now where with only 16 seats the TNA is the opposition, while with 51 Dinesh is not. But even in 77, when the SLFP was not the official opposition and they were down to less than 10 seats, they were also divided. But boy, did they put up a fight. Anura Bananayaka, Sarat Mutterugama. There are some who were there at the time who were still around, who came in later, like Dinesh and Vasu and so on. But they fought much harder than the 51-member opposition that we see. Something has changed in the political culture. Maybe they're just too comfortable. Maybe there are too many demands on them because you have PR and they've got to cover a large area. But I also think it's to do with the personalities. The personalities who were in opposition in 1977, facing Jaya Jawadar government with the 5/6 majority, those personalities were strong. And they held the fort. I don't see the same kind of dynamism on the part of the JO today.
Well, with that, let's head into a short commercial break, but when we come back, we'll have more on Vantage Point. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You are watching Vantage Point. Well, Doctor, there's been a lot of developments taking place in the economic front. When I say developments, we see a tax bill being brought to Parliament after the consent of the Cabinet without any public discourse. And they're replacing an entire tax law completely. So they're taking it and replacing it with a new act. And we also see so many developments taking place on the IMF front, where government is just scrambling to get that 1.5 billion US dollars during the months of May and June to kind of counter the balance of payment crisis. With all of this, where do you think we stand? Do we have a future where we can kind of maybe avoid a recession, a financial crisis? Because we had a lot of experts say in the past of a looming crisis in the economy itself. So do you think we should brace for impact?
Well, Stephanie, I attended an excellent symposium the other day. It was called Economic Forum 2017. It was at the Golfers Hotel, organized by Sri Lanka Inc. And the chief guest was Minister Kabir Hashim. A very intelligent minister, I must say. Even when I disagree with him, I must say he's an intelligent guy. And the keynote, there were three keynote speakers. I was one in the third and final session. I was the keynote speaker. But the star turn, I must concede very readily, was Professor Howard Nicholas. Now, Professor Howard Nicholas is of Sri Lankan origin. His grandfather was the Postmaster General of Sri Lanka, of Ceylon, as he pointed out. But he's spend most of his life abroad. He's rather like Professor Razin Saleh, who's another Sri Lankan-born economist, but Razin, the present chairperson of the IPS, is very much a right-wing economist, and Howard is far more sort of independent and sort of probably Asian capitalist leaning. He's based at the University of Rotterdam, he's a professor there, but he's spent his time recently living and teaching in Vietnam and China. So that's very interesting. Now, his speech is something that Kabir was listening to very, very keenly, but I think our viewers should know about. He made a PowerPoint presentation with lots and lots of statistics from a wide range of sources, and very clearly said the world is facing a deep recession, deeper than 2008, and no part of the world is going to be safe from it, and it is going to impact on Sri Lanka, and it's going to happen between 2017, that's this year, and 2019. It's going to be very deep, and it's going to hit Sri Lanka as well. Now, having said that, he said, look, how do you deal with this? You've got an opportunity because the Chinese are shifting their low-cost wage industries from the eastern coast of China. They're moving to Bangladesh. I mean, they could even move to Sri Lanka if you give them the stability that's necessary. So there is an option there. But he was very, very emphatic about something else. He said, don't follow this IMF advice because they don't even practice what they preach in their countries. It's very dangerous. And he went on to say that look at you have to look at the success stories of China and Vietnam. Not just look to them for money, which is what this government is doing. He said, understand their economic philosophy. And he was very clear. He said, I'm looking around for anyone in Sri Lanka who will talk about a national capitalism, not socialism, but not IMF-driven neoliberal capitalism. Because China and Vietnam, Vietnam perhaps is more applicable because it's much smaller than China, their success is in building up national capitalism. And he looked around this hall. There were, I mean, each ticket was $8,000, I think, and there were, the hall was full, all young corporate people who had bought tickets. And he said, where is the nationalism? I'm looking for a nationalist capitalism. That's what you should be thinking about. The one thing you must never do, he said, going by the experience of China and Vietnam, never, ever privatize or foreignize your strategic assets. By all means, you can privatize various companies. I mean, you can even go beyond public-private partnerships. But never privatize your ports and your airports, which of course is what we are doing. So, what Howard said about this deep recession, deeper than 2008, going to hit globally, including Sri Lanka in 2017, 2019, is a very important point. And he's saying, don't do some of the things you're doing now. It's very bad for you. The ports and the airports, do not give them away. Don't privatize. You can do anything else you want, but don't do that. And build a national capitalism. Now, those are the big takeaways from his speech. And I hope that Minister Kabir Hashim took it back with him to cabinet. In my speech, I built on what Howard said, and I used another book which kind of ties in with his prediction. There's this famous book called The Fourth Turning. It's become famous now because Donald Trump's chief strategist, Steve Bannon, who's not only an ex-Navy guy, but he's a very well-read and educated guy. You may disagree with his views, but he's known as one of the widest read people in Washington circles today. His Bible, as it were, is this book by Strauss and Hall, co-authored. It's called The Fourth Turning. And it analyzes data from the 1500s and concludes that the world goes through various phases, which also includes a generational shift. And the fourth turning is a deep crisis. It started in 2008, and it will reach a climax in 2020. And the authors of the fourth turning say that it could include, in some countries, even civil war, total war, but there will be a new public ethic and finally a new coming together.
But we are already in that spectrum.
We have begun, we are in it, but it hasn't climaxed.
How exactly can we remove ourselves from such a big network, and we are just a fraction of it?
Well, do what Harvard has suggested, that is, concentrate on building up a national capitalism, inject more nationalism, not ethnicity, because Harvard himself is not a Sinhalese or Sinhala Buddhist, but he's a Sri Lankan Sinhalese. As he said, where is the nationalist thinking? Be more patriotic. Learn from China and Vietnam. Try to attract Chinese factories, not give them your port. But know that you mustn't take the IMF's advice, because that's only going to make you very, very sick, and they don't do it themselves. And know that the recession is coming, and it's going to be very serious. It's not a good time. Don't make these stupid moves. I mean, I don't know whether I should even say it on television, but Professor Nicholas, at one point, he used the full word for BS. He said, this is BS. We actually use the word. So when a serious professor of economics from the University of Rotterdam says that, I take it very seriously. I think there's a way out of this. But I think we're heading in the wrong direction. I mean, I was watching Prime Minister Vikram Singhe's interview given to WION, WION, the Indian news television
but
news
we've
program.
already gotten money from the IMF, so it's only right that we abide by the rules.
Well, then we are going to have to take the consequences. I mean, look what happened to Greece. The consequences are going to be very drastic.
No, there have been success stories like Zimbabwe, for instance.
Zimbabwe? Oh my God! It's a horrible story.
IMF came to their rescue and gave them a viable option that they could go for, a compatible option, even though they are using different types of currencies. But they were not. Yes, they were in crisis, but they came back up.
Didn't Mugabe's wife say that if he's dead, they're going to run his corpse as president? So I mean, if you can keep your politics going that way, then it's okay. But if not, you go with the full IMF package, you will have. I mean, the joke is that the IMF.
What's the main reason for this government to take an IMF package altogether? Was it just mere rebellion against an idea that the former administration had of not? No. It's because by this government we are really talking about the UNP's present leadership. Yes.
The UNP's present leadership has effected a paradigm shift from the UNP's economic doctrine. The UNP's economic doctrine, which was in fact the economic doctrine of the Ceylon National Congress even before independence, was to build up a strong Ceylonese or Sri Lankan capitalism and a strong Sri Lankan entrepreneurial class, a capitalist class, and a strong capitalist state. Now, when Daya Gamage, who is a minister and an entrepreneur in the UNP government, says on the public record that this government is doing nothing for local entrepreneurs but everything for foreign entrepreneurs, then that tells me something has changed. Let me share something with you, because it happened publicly. I can tell you. I told you about the seminar, right? At one point, the chairperson of one of the sessions asked this audience, which was a corporate audience, as I said, they paid $8,000 to be there, each of them. And who can afford that but corporate executives? And this lady said, how many of you think that the country is on the right track?
I think we should put a hold to that, and
Yeah.
we're heading to a short commercial break. It's a very interesting story, but we're heading to a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll hear the rest of the story. Welcome back. We are in the final 3 minutes of the program. You were sharing a story with us about
So at this economic forum, Golf West Hotel, corporate audience, full hall, the chairperson of one of the who had a business background herself, she told the audience, how many of us think that the country is on the right track? So I looked around. Do you know, Stephanie, not one person raised their hand, not one of 200 fully paid up corporate executives at a day-long seminar at the Golf West Hotel. Then she asked again, please, ladies and gentlemen, how many of you think that things are going well, that we are on the right track?
That's an unhappy corporate sector.
Not one hand went up. Why is this? That is because for the first time you have a UNP leadership that isn't building up the productive sectors of the Sri Lankan business class. All faith is is reposed in foreigners and foreignization. Now, the interview that Prime Minister Wickremesinghe gave Padma Rao, who's an author and a TV personality of the station WION, WION. It was telecast on some of our stations, and you've got a transcript. And the Prime Minister said, we are going to hand over land in Gaul to Andhra Pradesh, in the northwestern province to India. We are negotiating about the Trincomalee port with India. I mean, it was all about long lease of various parts, Gaul, Coimbatore, and so on, to foreign countries for very long leases. Now, that's the only idea they have. That plus the IMF. They've turned to China for money, but as Howard Nicholas was saying, they haven't studied the Chinese and the Vietnamese or the East Asian economic doctrine. They're worshipping the IMF and asking for money from the Chinese, when what they should be doing is studying China, Vietnam, Singapore. He said Singapore, Malaysia, they never gave their ports and airports.
Thank you very much for joining us, Doctor.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you very much for joining us as well. This is Vantage Point, and this is where we believe perspective matters, and we want your opinions, your questions. Send it to Newsfirst@maharaj.lk. I'm Stephanie Lazarus. Until we meet again, this is Vantage Point.